Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. Going to listen to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast. We're now in our 20th year. Very proud of that. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things for people living in San Diego County. They're all over the board with phenomenal stuff, whether it was for the homeless or as art programs, financial literacy, food insecurity. They're always there, shoulder to shoulder. So glad to have back in the studio for a return appearance is Melissa Peterman. She is the Executive Director of Townspeople. How you doing, Melissa?
I'm well. How are you?
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel. She is the Executive Director of San Diego Writers, Inc. Always elevates the program when she is in the co-pilot seat. And why don't we get started, Kristen, with a question for Melissa?
Yeah, let's just start off by talking about the mission of the organization.
Yeah, we are focused on ending homelessness, and primarily that's through housing and supportive services with an emphasis on housing as healthcare, right?
Yeah.
No one can really thrive in this world without the bare essentials, and the main one being housing.
Absolutely. So how does that look in practice?
So we've been around for 40 plus years. And part of what drew me to the organization is our history. We started in the 80s in response to the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and a group of neighbors in the Hillcrest area came together, saw that people were being denied housing based on their diagnosis, and were like, this is like abhorrent, and so let's pool together and find housing. So housing has always been the basis of townspeople, and as a method of making sure that not only are people not discriminated against, but also like have a way to stay healthy. Like people living with HIV are very vulnerable, and so they need like a safe and secure environment to regain their health. And so we've built on that over the last 40 years. We own and operate a small portfolio of affordable housings. We've got about 119 units or so, almost all of which are provided with supportive services, so that we not only ensure that people have that safe place to go, but also the kind of services that they need in order to live long and healthy lives. So we've got a great team of housing folks and a great team of service staff, and I'm very lucky to work with them every day.
That's such a compelling story, just this group of neighbors, coming together, seeing a need, addressing said need. Are any of those folks still involved, or Yeah,
when I came to the organization, one of the founders, Kent Smith, he reached out, and so we've maintained a relationship since I've been with the organization about 5 years, and he's such an amazing resource, and it's really cool to as I've unearthed some photos and news articles from the beginning, and just seeing him as a young person, not that he's not still young,
right?
But where I'm just amazed at the compassion and initiative that folks had when it wasn't necessarily their job, right? They were just this is a need in the community, and I hope I feel good about the ways in which we're keeping that going into this day. But he works in real estate, and so he's able to provide some insight, not only based on the origins of the organization, but just sort of the state of housing today. And if nothing else, he's also just a good person to
Yeah.
to talk with.
That's wonderful. So are we dealing with people that are just homeless across the board? Do they all have some sort of health component involved? How does that sort of work?
Yeah, I mean, supporting folks with health vulnerabilities it's still core to who Townspeople is. But, luckily, science and medical treatment has advanced so much in the last 40 years that people living with HIV, it's not a death sentence anymore. And so we're very fortunate that some of the people that we have been serving for 20 years are still with us, right? So we've moved from trying to help them get connected to the appropriate medical care to now we're supporting them to thrive in old age, which is wonderful. It also has meant that we've been able to expand our target population to people experiencing homelessness more broadly. Definitely, I think it kind of goes with the territory that if you're experiencing homelessness, you likely are dealing with some sort of health vulnerability, whether it came before or after the experience of being unhoused. So that is still again very, very core to what we do, but always we start with let's get people housed, and then let's figure out what they need in order to maintain that housing.
So talk about some of the organizations that you work with, whether it's Father Joe's or Rescue Mission or Alpha Project or the other ones that are doing really great work in our communities.
Absolutely. I can't say enough about all of the fantastic organizations in our community, and I'm sure they've all been on the show, I hope.
They have. They have. Yeah.
And so we started a few years ago a collaborative called the San Diego Shared Housing Collaborative, where we're bringing together service partner organizations from across the county to help make co-living a more embedded housing option for folks who are exiting homelessness. It sounds sort of odd to say that I've been working in this industry for 20 years and we don't do shared housing as an instant option for folks, or at least as an offering, because the rest of us I've always shared housing with others, because San Diego's crazy expensive.
Exactly.
Exactly. And so how do we expect people with very low incomes to afford to live here if not to share housing? We all know that there's not enough of truly affordable housing. So it's been great to work. Father Joe's has been an amazing partner with us, as well as PATH, Interfaith Community Services, San Diego Rescue Mission, the LGBT Center. There's 30 plus organizations that participate in this collaborative, and our goal is to help people find housemates that they choose, right? Choice is of the utmost importance to us. So we help to facilitate their ability to find housemates, and then we help them find housing in the rental market where, obviously it's never going to be where someone's paying only 30% of their income, right? But, we could get it maybe to be 70 to 80% of their income, which is a success for us. And it's better than 100% of your income. And then we work with other service providers who are providing services to make sure that each housemate has what they need in order to, live successfully together.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring this up, Melissa, and I think you'd agree too, Kristen, is that it's such an obvious thing. Well, yeah. Well, listen, why don't we share this thing? Because, listen, as long as you're both going to be able to afford it, you choose the person you want to live with, of course, and that. I think 1 + 1 will equal 8 in this aspect of it. There's no question about it. So does the process work where the person has to agree to live with somebody else or whatever the case may be, or share housing with someone else. And then the next step is to find where the housing is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the best example of how this is working right now is with the city of Vista. They are an amazing partner. And we started a pilot with them a couple years ago and found so much success in the pilot that they are continuing it beyond. So we're in our first post-pilot year right now, but it's a really amazing partnership with them, and then by extension, San Diego Rescue Mission. And so we are working with a lot of the agencies up in North County, in Vista in particular, Retread being one of them, and the Vista Navigation Center another. And, we help them understand how to talk to their shelter residents, et cetera, their outreach clients about shared housing as an option. And some folks already come with housemates in mind. And so then we're just talking with them about, hey, have you talked to them about how you would split costs? What holidays do you want to celebrate together? That kind of thing.
Yeah, no question about that. We're chatting with Melissa Peterman. She's the Executive Director of Townspeople. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, joined by co-host Kristen Fogel, Executive Director of San Diego Riders, Inc. When people split the cost, can it be any percentage of splitting the cost? It doesn't have to be 50-50. If this person can only do 30% and that can do 70%, then that works as well.
Yeah, we really work with them to figure out what makes sense for their housemate group, right?
Yeah.
So we've had some instances where it was a couple, they had a young child, and then it was a senior. And so the couple with the child is obviously paying more. There's more of them than the senior. And then there's been some instances where it's a young person paired with a senior. The young person is paying a little bit more because they're able to.
Now, will they be in a house? Is it an apartment? Is it a condo? Is it a wherever there's a room?
We take it. We look at everything. There's a great property management company up in Vista International, that we work really closely with. And so whenever they've got a vacancy in one of their complexes, they'll call us and let us know, hey, do you have anyone? Do you want to bring them by to look at this place? And so, we send out the message to all of our housemate groups, and we'll bring them in for a walkthrough.
No, that sounds great. When we come back from break, I know Kristen's got a question for you on the CalAIM program. We're chatting with Melissa Peterman, Executive Director of Townspeople. We'll be right back after this short message.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, nation's longest-running community podcast, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, 60-plus years of doing great things in the community. So pleased to have back in as a return appearance Melissa Peterman, Executive Director of Townspeople, joined by co-host Kristen Fogel. She's the Executive Director of San Diego Riders, Inc. Kristen.
Yeah. I guess I just wanted to like go back to what we're talking about with the shared housing program and just say, we talk so much about like the loneliness epidemic. Like I think that's so brilliant,
Yes.
So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that because I think that's
Spot
just
on.
phenomenal that you're doing that. But I want to turn now to the CalAIM program and see if
Yeah.
maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. CalAIM is an awesome offering through the state of California through Medicaid. So California created a waiver program that allows them to direct Medicaid dollars to housing costs. And so different service providers can qualify to then bill Medicaid basically for housing costs, which, as we talked a little bit earlier about, housing is healthcare, right?
Yeah.
And so it's so great that the state has found ways to fund that as a healthcare intervention.
Yeah.
And so we've been really blessed to work with neighborhood networks. So they're a collective. They contract with all of San Diego's health plans, and which is great for small nonprofits like Townspeople, because I'm sure folks can imagine like the bureaucratic and administrative hurdles that come with working with Medicaid.
Yeah, sure.
And so they shoulder that burden, and then they basically sub out to nonprofits like Townspeople to do the actual service work. So we started with neighborhood networks in February and have served over 70 people so far through this program. And so we've got staff who are helping people who are, Medicaid beneficiaries to find housing in our community and there's no limit to what that housing can look like. So, we're talking to them about shared housing. Mm-hmm. We're talking to them about affordable housing, senior housing, independent living, all the options. And we're working with them to find what will work for them. And it's such an incredible resource for us, because I'm sure there's not enough. There's a lot of money that goes into solving homelessness and a lot of money that goes into healthcare, but it's not necessarily accessible in the ways that we would hope it to be. So this is just been such a godsend for us to be able to have this new source of funding that can sustain some of our essential operations, which is really just helping people find and access the housing that's already out there.
Well, and you bring up a point that if people don't think housing is probably the best way, I should say, to get out of homelessness, then they're in a different planet than we're in.
Yeah.
Of course it is. And finding that in the cohabitation or the living together is absolutely spot on. Do we have enough properties? You hear a lot about apartment complexes or, hotels or motels that are now vacant and are using it. Is there enough property for us to do this, or is it just as tough to unlock that?
I want to say yes.
Yeah, right.
Which is kind of a cop-out of an answer, I think. But
Really.
There is a lot of, most of San Diego County's rental stock is multi-bedroom. And so there is a lot of opportunity for us to build inroads with property owners who are open to renting to our folks. And so that's a lot of what we do is, trying to build relationships with those property owners. And, it's a business for them. We're not asking for charity or anything. We have folks that will pay their portions of rent.
Right.
And so, and then they have the backup source for support, which is us.
Right.
Which a lot of, I don't come with a team when I'm renting.
Right.
So I'd like to think that that's a plus for property owners out there. But I do also think that at the same time as we've got this untapped existing rental stock resource in our community, there is a need for additional housing, but that takes so long to build, and it's very expensive.
It's unbelievably expensive.
Yeah.
And so we need to do both simultaneously. So finding ways to utilize the housing stock we have more creatively than the homeless assistance system has, and then bringing in new inventory.
Right. So, I know when I talked to our good friend who Kristen knows, Deacon Jim Vargas is a regular guest on the show, and Donnie D's been on, of course, and they're very metric focused, okay, and make sure that the money that the grantees are giving are actually going in the right area. Of course, they're very studious when it comes to what they're going to do and how they're going to implement it. How do you measure yourself to say this is working? Because is it now we provided, there's a quantitative number. There's 150 more people that are now not homeless. Absolutely huge. But do you track them afterwards when they leave and now they've been building themselves up, they've got some jobs, they're being able to rent on their own? How do you do that?
Yeah, we do. Obviously, as much as anyone wants to maintain contact with us.
Exactly.
Totally understand if they're like, I'm done, thanks, bye. But we do touch base with folks just to make sure that they're doing all right. And honestly, we have a lot of folks reach back out to us to share their successes, and it's so appreciated. And one of my favorite memories so far this year is actually a veteran who was supported in our shared housing program. We helped. He had become homeless because of issues with his vehicle, so he wasn't able to get to work. And so we helped him find a co-living situation, and he was able to then save money to repair his vehicle, and then he relocated to Los Angeles where he had relationships and he's doing great. He's working, he's in his own he stayed housed, and he sent a text message to our staff earlier this year where I think he recognized that we're a small organization. But in a lot of ways, for me, that's a plus, because we can be a little bit more nimble. We can be more personable, and but I appreciated his message because he was like, basically, I know you're a small organization, but you made like a huge difference in my life, and if I could give you a Purple Heart, I would, or it's something along those lines, And
Wow.
I was like,
How do you not cry in that one?
right? I was like, if I could just frame this every day, maybe I will actually, because it was just like such and that credit goes to him, credit goes to the team for just really collaborating together, right? And understanding that something that seems very trivial, like car trouble, would cause someone who has served their country to become homeless and not be able to sustain like themselves. It's just mind-boggling that can happen. And so I'm so appreciative that he was open to working with us and then sharing his story afterwards. It was amazing.
Well, two things. One, it shows how close people are to becoming homeless.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, we're all, everyone's a couple of paychecks away. The majority of folks.
I think who've been working their whole lives,
Yep.
And all of a sudden, due to whether it's inflation or pick a topic in
Right.
this aspect, that's how close it is. And something as simple as you think that's going to cause someone to be, the answer is absolutely. You're close to it, you know it, you see it all the time, as do the Father Joes and the rescue missions and all that aspect of it. So, and this is why we love having folks like you on and Deacon Jim and Donnie D. You can't talk enough about this and get people that, don't see this, because maybe they're in a neighborhood where they're not going to see some of this aspect of it. If you have any ounce of compassion, you can look at that story with that veteran and say, my goodness, I could have made a difference in, this person's life, and so forth. So we really just can't talk enough about that. What are some of the biggest challenges? Obviously, we know San Diego is not the cheapest place to live.
I would say that I'll probably sound like a broken record
But it's
or
true.
whatever, but
Yeah.
cost of living is just, and it hits everyone, right? It's not just the people who townspeople is helping. It's like my family.
Yeah.
Like it's really rough. When the California Housing Partnership and the Housing Federation recently put out a report that talked about the housing crisis, and especially as it relates to affordability, where it shows you've got to earn about like $50 an hour, which is, if you're working full time, like $8,000 a month in order to afford like a $2,000 a month or $2,500 a month apartment or whatnot.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. And our clients make if they're receiving
$1,500 a month,
right? They're
an
getting
hour,
about
I should think.
$2,000 a month.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like I lose my words when I think about like
what that
looks like.
And that's why this shared housing is just so unbelievably critical. And do you see other entities or different municipalities doing what you guys are doing?
Yeah, we have actually started through the Shared Housing Institute, which is based out of Connecticut. They hired townspeople recently to facilitate a national call. So we just had our first one this month, actually, and we work with organizations from across the country. We helped host a conference actually a couple years ago where we had representatives from 30 different states come together to talk about like what they're doing to make co-living a reality in their communities, and all to learn from each other too. So this is a growing trend across the country, which I'm really excited then to learn from other organizations, other cities, etc., about like what's working for you all, because even though we're all in different parts of the country, we're all often facing the same kind of pushback and stigma around co-living. So it's nice to have a community to learn from and with.
Right. What can our listeners do to support you?
I honestly, right now, I think I feel very passionate about advocacy. There's so much. But we're just past budget season for the state and city, county, but it's not the end, right? I mean, I feel like for those poor folks whose responsibility is the budget, as soon as they finish one, they start on the next one. And so,
trust me, I've been running the Union Tribune's Community and Public Relations Department. It was like, I thought we just got through the budget cycle. We have to go back to this torture chamber
right?
again.
Indeed.
But listen, I mean, is there a website where people can donate? They can volunteer?
Absolutely. Townspeople.org is our website. And you can reach out to me directly, Melissa@townspeople.org, if you're interested in getting involved or learning more about what's going on in your particular part of San Diego County.
Right.
I'm happy to connect.
Right. So what I'd love to do is, I don't think we've had this happen yet. If you want to bring somebody in that has benefited from townspeople, okay, or that veteran's up in LA now or wherever you said he is, but whoever it is, not trying to break any laws and all that. But there are a lot of people that want to say, no, this is how this impacted us with townspeople. Let's get you back on with some of the folks that benefited.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Consider that a done deal. Melissa Peterman, always good to see you. Executive Director of Townspeople. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight, the community show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast in our 20th year. Very proud of that. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, 60 years of doing great things in our community, and always appreciative to have as my co-pilot, Kristen Fogle. She is the Executive Director of San Diego Writers, Inc. To our audience, we hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.